Well, I kind of like cyclamen. I think they're really special at this time of year, just as you're moving from summer into autumn. I think I always look forward to seeing the sort of, you know, the first cyclamen, then followed by the slow burn through to the main display, which takes a few weeks. But to see a bank of Cyclamen hederifolium in all these glorious colours is really special. A long time ago, I was a student at Wisley back in the mid-80s at the RHS Gardens at Wisley in Surrey. And I can remember seeing this bank of enormous clumps of Cyclamen hederifolium, but looking back, you can see how much that the actual plant has evolved in terms of its decorative attributes, like its colour, the leaf markings, and all of those things. That today we're looking at a Cyclamen hederifolium with colours such as this dark red purple, which has really completely changed from what they were like nearly 40 years ago. To begin with, back in the early 80s, you only ever really saw them in England. They were these sort of rather dried out, flabby tubers that you would see in boxes, open boxes of sawdust in garden centres, and most of the time they didn't grow because they'd been dug up in the wild and brought in from Turkey or elsewhere in EU. But gradually the perception of how to grow them changed, and so they became quite widely available as pot-grown plants, plants grown from UK seed, and they would be a much better bargain. Although they were a bit more expensive, they'd actually established themselves in gardens rather than these sort of dried out poor tubers that are almost dead. And consequently, you know, they started to become a lot more popular and more widely grown. I think they're great plants because they don't really take up a lot of space. And you can plant them underneath things like roses and towards the edge of borders, and they also assort really well with spring bulbs like snowdrops, scillas, daffodils, dwarf daffs. It's like they provide almost like a temporary ground cover that goes on till about sort of late April or May, when they finally die back. They generally grow in most soils. The only real requirement is that they mustn't have boggy conditions. They need good drainage, but they're really tolerant of a wide range of different soils. And underneath trees, underneath roses, towards the edge of borders, they just establish themselves, and you'll find within a few years that you'll get lots of young seedlings coming up. You'll find little clumps of say 15 or 20 seedlings, and in time these can be separated out and actually replanted to form new colonies. In the old days, the range of markings in cyclamen outside of really specialist collections was really fairly limited to this kind of like rather shield or hastate pattern. But gradually, over time, some more special forms started to become available, like this pewter leaf form, and these are now really quite widely grown and really contrast with the flowers.